Let's do it.
Let's do it. We're here with Titans head coach Brian Callahan. Joint practice yesterday. You got the preseason game tomorrow. We didn't have the opportunity to talk to you after practice yesterday, but just generally, how'd you feel about the work that the team got in?
I thought it was great. Really good work. I thought it was really good practice in general. It was physical, it was hot, it was long, it was exactly what we were hoping for. Everything we were intending to get from the practice, I think we got from it. Let Cam get a chance to see some other jerseys in a different scheme. We could go against the talent. They got talent on that roster. I mean, it's a 10-win team. It's a playoff team. To go compete against them was great. As far as execution goes, I thought we did some really good things. I think we had some moments that we get some good coaching off of, but it was a really productive practice, and I'm really glad we did it.
From the start of it to the way that things kind of progress, you know, I know there's some notable moments, and you guys have obviously had the opportunity to watch back the film and see some things that maybe you didn't see in real time to give you a different perspective. But like starting with the interception, and I guess that's the end of half simulation that you guys were running about halfway through practice. Cam throws the pick to Reddick, and then comes back in, settles everybody in, and starts to execute a little better. You've talked a lot about his heart rate and the fact that it doesn't move and the fact that he's able to settle everybody in that way. That at least stood out to me in the way that he handled it himself, the way that he talked to it about us, or to us about it afterwards, where he's saying, yeah, I'm going to throw an interception. We just got to find ways to work through that stuff. How gratifying is that to see from your quarterback, understanding how important that mental side is?
Well, that's the game, right, for the quarterbacks. They are going to make mistakes. No quarterback plays a perfect game. But when you have the opportunity to bounce back, whether it's in game, whether it's the next game, whatever that is, you have to be able to do it. Some guys don't have the ability to do that, or it takes them another 2 or 3 series to bounce back, and they're still thinking about it. But Cam doesn't flinch ever when it comes to a mistake. In fact, he's almost dismissive of mistakes sometimes. But you need to be that way. You have to have that almost defensive back mentality of like, they're going to give up catches. Guys are going to catch the ball on you. You're going to get beat deep sometimes. And how do you respond to the next play? And he's done a really good job of compartmentalizing an error and finding a way to come back and make a play. And that was a great example of it. I mean, obviously you don't want to start a 2-minute drive with a pick. The guy dropped. He saw the dropper, but he's trying to force the ball in there. We didn't need to. And the kid made a nice play on the ball, but Cam put the ball right there for him to go take, and then comes back and leads us down into field goal range on the next drive with a couple really nice completions. So he doesn't really flinch. That's a good sign. I'm glad we see that from him. But it was good to see it against another team when, you know, everyone's against you. You know what I mean?
Sure, and the fans were loud yesterday.
Chirping. Yeah. It was a great practice environment. I really enjoyed it. It's a great setup down there, too. So to see all that and him respond was great. It's exactly what you hope to see.
Obviously it's not just about Cam, and I want to talk to you about some other things as well. But in particular for him, you got the work that you got in yesterday. He's going to get an opportunity to get some work in tomorrow. What does that kind of look like based on what he was able to accomplish and what you still want to see?
There's always, I mean, the good thing about where he's at is there's always something more to continue to coach off of. He got a bunch of work yesterday. He's going to get some work in a preseason game. I think being in a preseason game, hearing the play call, and not having anybody around him, you know, it's just him in the huddle and the offense on the field, and you don't have anybody talking to him, but he's got to come off the field. Just the process of getting ready to play, operating in a game environment with the communication, and then, you know, go execute a little bit. They're not going to play their starters, from what I understand, which is no problem for us. This is more about us operating in a game day environment, and he's going to get probably for sure a series, maybe 2, depending on how they go and how many plays it ends up being. But he's going to play.
Nick handling the offense and allowed you to bounce around a little bit. I know that's been a point of emphasis for you coming into the off-season program and then into training camp. How do you feel like that balance is going, and how do you feel like the players across the roster are responding to that, from you specifically?
Yeah, I think it's good. I think that those guys, the defense needs to see me be present with them. I do spend a lot of time and focus on the offense for obvious reasons, but they do enjoy seeing me around and being a part of their process too. And the meetings are hard for me to necessarily be in all the different meetings because I do a lot of the installing and those things, but Nick's done a great job of handling the day-to-day processes and allowing me to be a little bit more free, especially yesterday that, you know, I could walk over and watch the defensive play, watch the one-on-ones and come back. It was really positive, I think. And I think the other day I was kind of hanging around the defense during a period, and Hook kind of talked to me in passing. He's like, yeah, I kind of like when you're over here. I'm like, you know what? I like being here too, Hook. So that part of it's been good. I think I've done a better job of connecting with the entirety of the team and not just jumping in the offensive meetings where I'm most comfortable.
I think Holtz is the only person I saw not take a selfie with Gruden yesterday.
Which is crazy because he's the one that probably did the most work for him.
I've seen enough of you, Nick. Let me go talk to some other people. Even Coach Mack.
Yeah, which I mean, I love Coach Gruden. He was really fun to be. I grew up with him.
Right.
So I've known John for a long time, and then get a chance to work for him as a professional in a different capacity, which was great. It was good to see him. I'm glad he was out there. He's a hell of a coach, and I mean, we had quite a few Raiders in our building, and
there's a few wandering around,
and that he had been a part of as well. So it's cool to see him. I'm glad I've invited him to come to Tennessee a couple of times, and hasn't worked out, but he's the best.
Apparently, that was the first Bucs practice he's been to so far this camp too.
That doesn't. I mean, he's pretty busy schedule-wise. I don't know all the Barstool stuff he does, but I think he's got a lot going on.
Yeah.
But it was good to see him. I'm glad he came out.
You got a good Gruden story from growing up around him?
Yeah. No, I do. I have a great Gruden story. So I was probably 14 or 15. I was young. I was freshman or sophomore in high school, and when I was that age, I was good enough to like go throw in drills. So like I would throw like individual routes when the receivers were warming up. I was like an extra arm, and I'd like work in the equipment room. And so I'd be hanging around training camp for weeks at a time. And it was up in Napa at the time, up in Napa Valley, and I was throwing routes to the receivers as they were warming up. And I threw a ball. I think it might have been either Jerry Rice or Tim Brown maybe, but I threw kind of a bad ball.
Okay.
And I remember walking into after practice, I was walking into the staff meeting with the coaches because I would just sit and listen and watch. And John had the clip up. Now, knowing what I know now is I probably got set up, but I walked in and John's watching me throw this like bad ball to one of their best receivers. And he told me if I ever threw a ball like that again, he'd break my arms. And in only the most John Gruden way.
Sure.
So I don't think I missed too many throws after that, but that one always stood out.
Teachable moment.
Yeah. Don't throw bad balls in my warm-ups, But it was great. I mean, I spent so much time around him when I was young in Oakland, all those years at training camps, and that was like my high school years. So I was around a lot, and I was in meetings, and I'd listen to him install, and he's fantastic.
Well, it's so cool to hear the different like levels of experience because obviously you're a lifer, like you've been around.
Yeah, I don't know anything else but this.
Right. So you've got so many different things that have informed the way that you go about each job that you've had, and now obviously this one. So I put it out on Twitter, just kind of questions for you, and if there was a good enough one, I'd ask you.
Yeah.
But like from all the different styles that you've been around and the things that you study specific to like looking at the off-season program and all the different things that you pull from all different levels of sports, not just football, how do you go about getting guys to buy in without going outside of who you are, like without losing the authenticity of it? Because that's the stuff that the audience doesn't get to see.
I think that's the most important part when you're in this role as a head coach, and it's for all head coaches, is we're all products of our experiences. And I've been around some really great head coaches, Gary Kubiak and John Fox and Jim Caldwell and John Gruden. I mean, there's guys that are really good at what they do. They have a lot of success in this league, and they all do it differently, and they all do it their own way. And that's the most important part to me, I think, is that I'm still authentic to my personality. I kind of am who I am, and I don't try to deviate too much from that, because I think if you try to pretend you're something that you're not, players see that pretty quickly, and they see if it's false, and they see if you're trying to be somebody else. Like, I can't be John Gruden. I'm not. I don't have John's. That's not me.
I don't think there's only one.
There is only one. There's only one of him. But I'm also not Gary Kubiak. You know what I mean? Our personalities and styles are very different. It doesn't make it the coaching style better or worse. It's just you're different. And as long as you're true to who you are, which I think I've done a good job of being pretty straightforward about who I am and how I treat people, and the way I interact is just it's how I am. I think players respect that, and then I think they know that I work really hard at it. That there's nothing that I do that doesn't have a lot of thought put into it, and I think they respect that and respond to it. And I think that's the easiest way you can get buy-in, is that you're true to who you are. They know that you're putting the time and the work in, and you're doing everything you can to put them in good position. And once they realize that, I think it's easy.
Coach Mack has a phrase that I like, but keep your powder dry. Like, you try not to get too excited about one thing or another. But seeing some of the extensions of that through the way that your players talk about how you guys are approaching it is allowing us, at least from an interview standpoint or a media standpoint, to kind of get a glimpse of that. JC is somebody who we had on the show earlier this week, and just how personally he took everything last year, and the way, the intensity that he's approached his physical improvement, his technical improvement, all the different things, and how he's tried to make himself an extension of that message. Again, not trying to read too much into the things one way or the other, but it's noticeably different from, and I know he's only in his second year, but like guys like that taking those things to heart and being an extension of you and the staff on the field.
Yeah, I think JC's a perfect example of what we want the players to be, and how serious we want them to take the job. And we have a lot of young players, and so there's a lot of coaching that goes on with those guys. And I think their ability to understand what we're after and what we're chasing, I think, is a big part of it. The other part of it is that we don't, people don't know me, right? They don't know how I am on a day-to-day basis. They see press conferences and all those things, and
they're too busy making fun of our questions.
That's right. But they don't, like, just because of like my demeanor and my style in a press conference, and how I go about being demanding as a coach. I think JC's a great example of those. We have very direct conversations, and there's not a lot of BS involved in it, and it's pretty straightforward, and I tell the truth. But I tell it in a way that it's probably maybe not as harsh as it could be, but
Sure.
But I tell the truth, and so do all of our coaches. And that's, I think, what's allowed our players is that they know exactly what's expected. And part of what JC's evolution is he saw his tape, but he also had very honest and direct conversations with me and my dad after the season about where he could have been better and what was disappointing, and where he needs to get better if he wants to be the type of player that he thinks he can be. And they buy into that. I mean, at the end of the day, he knows that if he does these things, he's going to put himself in position to be successful, because he also believes in the coaching he's getting on top of it. And he knows that if I do my part, we're going to do our part, and we're going to put you in great position to be successful. That's the idea.
It's easy to be, encouraged and refreshed before a season starts, before the stuff gets really hard, before losses happen and things like that, the adversity. But it's noticeable with Calvin. And last year was a grind, right? And down the stretch. And I think he handled it as well as one could handle it, I'm sure, from your perspective as well. But just to see the way that he's come out this year, and the way that bleeds through to everybody on the roster, and of course he's an effective player, that has to be a night and day difference for what you guys are trying to accomplish, based on just seeing the way that he's ready to work, and how seriously he took how bad things got last year.
Yeah, Calvin's incredibly prideful. He's an elite competitor. Otherwise, he wouldn't be doing what he's doing, especially at his age. And he's also a very passionate person, and he believes in what we're trying to get done. He believes in the guys in the locker room, which I think is really cool. And there's nobody that works harder than him. And I think he took it upon himself to say that I know I can do a better job from a veteran perspective of helping our team. And now he's got a bunch of young kids around him that he can really have an impact on. And I think he enjoys that part of it. And I think he enjoys the idea that I can be in a leadership role that I've earned over my career. And the way that he works certainly earns him that right. There's nobody that practices harder than Calvin, except for maybe Jeff, in terms of their effort and energy from every snap in practice. Those guys are what makes your program come alive. Those are the people you have to have. Guys that got pelts on the wall and that practice and play it with a certain degree of intensity all the time. And Calvin, I think, had this moment where he's like, I know I can be better in that regard, and I know I can help turn this. And I think the guys that we have in our locker room, the veteran players, I think are excited by that challenge. That's fun to be able to take something that wasn't very good last year, to see how much better we can make it in year 2 and in year 3, and be able to have a lasting impact on the legacy of what hopefully our program can become. And I think they take that as a personal challenge too. You
talk about Jeff and in practice. How much versatility can a player like that give you and Denard for what you can do? Where you're trying to, obviously you want the players to win the matchups that they have in front of them and how they go about their individual assignments, but where you guys can help them schematically, how big a role can Jeff play for you this year?
It's huge, because he's, especially what I've seen from Jeff in terms of, just like JC, the same thing. Like, Jeff looked at himself and said, how do I play better? How can I be more explosive? How do I make a bigger impact on the game? And he loses weight, and he's as explosive as I've seen him. Haven't played against him for a couple of years too. That part, that intensity that he brings to impact, I think, is the starting point. And then now that he's got this a little bit more versatility, he can play up and down the line. And so the idea when you rush is, where do you find your one-on-ones? how do you get guys put in position to have one-on-ones that you can get your best players one-on-one with either their weakest player or a one-on-one at a place that they can win. That's where Jeff's versatility comes in. You can move him up and down the line and try to find him the one-on-ones to go win, because I think now that you add with Draymond and Femi and even Sebastian's had a really good camp in his role.
He's a solid player,
Just
Sebastian.
a get it done guy, gritty, dirty. I mean, that's his job and he loves it. But I think when you move those guys around, they start to create different problems for an offense, and that's part of the rush. You know, talked about the rush plan and how you can scheme rush. Now, you still got to have good players, but how do you find one-on-ones? How do you condense the pocket? And how do you give Jeff to do what get a chance to do what he does best, which is disrupt? I mean, he disrupts everything on an offensive side of the ball because of the tempo that he plays with. And then you add the explosiveness and the weight loss, and now you got some versatility. And he's a matchup nightmare for some of those interior guys. And I think he's excited about the prospect of having a little more chances to go get after the quarterback.
As now that the installation for the most part is done now, it's about the
finished.
refinement.
Yep.
You've talked about incorporating, and this is not specific to you guys, but like the trickle-up effect from what players do in college to what you guys can do in the pros. You've mentioned using some of the stuff that Miami did to get Cam comfortable, plays that he likes and stuff like that. Is that more a specific play thing, or is that an overarching like concept type of installation or acclimation?
Yeah, it's probably a little bit of both. Because we have a lot of this, you know, they ran a pretty good offense down there at Miami, and there's a lot of carryover plays. You know, there's only so many plays in football, right? There's only so many ways you can attack cover three. It's just the way it is. And they had some pretty similar things that carried over easily. Now he's just learning what we called it versus what he called it and things like that. But there's also a couple of things that he has a better feel for that maybe we didn't have as a part of our offense. And it's not some long list, but it's a couple of things here and there that you just try to give him so he feels more comfortable. And he feels like this is something I know and I've got reps banked on over the last X amount of years. So then when the call comes up, he feels like I can go do this in my sleep. I've got reps banked over time that I can draw from. And that's what's happening right now. Now that the installation's over, now we start to sort of condense some of what we're doing and how we're doing it so he can, you know, you need a particular concept versus 2 versus 4 versus 1 versus pressure. And now it's like you start banking these reps of the variations of all the coverage structures you'll see. And the name of the game at quarterback is how quickly can I recognize that and where do I go and how fast do I know where to go with the ball. And that's what we're starting to bank now. And you're starting to see Cam play a little faster. He's starting to play a little more confidence. The ball's coming out of his hand quicker because he starts to know where things are happening and why they're happening. And that's the benefit of now you're coming out of an installation where you're throwing everything at him to now you're starting to refine and cut it back down. And then you get into what a game plan is going to be. That process makes it a lot easier for him.
I think that's about all I had for you, unless I forgot to ask you something you wanted to talk about.
No, nothing comes up.
No, shut up! I want to go to a meeting.
No, I want to go coach football. Leave me alone. I'm just really. I think everything about this trip has been everything we were hoping to get out of it. You know, from the travel to the time together, to the competition versus another team, and it's been just really fun to watch our team grow. And where we're at right now versus where we started in training camp versus hopefully where we are at the end is really encouraging. I mean, the growth that our young players have shown, I think you start to see it between, you know, Alec and Femi and Chim and all these guys, Gunnar Helm, these guys that we're counting on to be contributors for us. Just the amount of growth they've had in a short amount of time, I think has been really cool to watch, and it's got to continue. We're not there yet, but it's exciting to be able to measure against another team, and we get 2 more practices against Atlanta and 2 more games to play here before it's said and done. So everything we were hoping to get, I think we've gotten so far.
Well, enjoy tomorrow. I'm excited to get back into it and looking forward to
real football.
Real football. Yeah. We love real football.
It's kind of real football.
Listen, I'm like a drug addict at this point. Just give me as close to it as I can get. Yeah. Thanks for doing it, Brian.
You got it. Good to see you.
Good to see you.